Alright there, you little demons. Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, the weekly medieval themed format where I, the crown jewels of WhatCulture.com ticket list chosen by you, yes, you, the person who wishes the sun would just bloody shine on the UK for more than 2 consecutive days. It is meant to be our summer and I'm in a bloody jumper. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week, and this week we have none other than the Crimson Lichen for their suggestion of video games that were sent out there, proclaimed to the world that they were the Halo / Call of Duty / insert big game killer here, and they succeeded. Because that's the thing, we hear so often about games that try to take the crown but fumble their way up the steps, fall over and their pantaloons fall down. But here, we're going to be talking about the games that went up right to the king and said, "Regicide!" Boom! Halo reference. Also just a cool thing to say. Well, imagine being in that booth when that was said. Shivers. Shivers, my friend. If I had hair, it would stand on end right now. But yes, that's what we're going to be talking about today. The ones that aimed for the stars and took everyone else out along with them in a supernova. So let's have a chat. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 video games built to kill the competition that won. Ooh, baby, and you know the drill by now. Put your suggestions for next week's episode down in the comments section below, but let's get to the chase by talking about number 8, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Now, it's fair to say that the Call of Duty franchise didn't merely eat Medal of Honor's lunch, it took its breakfast and dinner as well, leaving the once peerless FPS franchise emaciated and begging for scraps. Throughout the early to mid-2000s, Medal of Honor was the military shooter franchise, driven to enormous success by the popularity of 2002's iconic Medal of Honor Allied Assault. Remember that opening mission? We stormed the beaches on D-Day? Ooh. Second round of chills, mate. I'll tell you what, no wonder I need a jumper. But soon enough, key personnel from the Allied Assault team left to make their own company, Infinity Ward, and launched Call of Duty the very next year, which they internally nicknamed the MOH Killer. And even though the first 3 or so Call of Duty games were well received, they didn't seem to put a serious dent in Medal of Honor's market share. But, hoo boy, it's coming. It's 2007. What's that? It's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Ooh, just beautiful game. Beyond its refreshing contemporary setting, Modern Warfare boasted a thrillingly cinematic campaign, unlike any other military FPS shooter has seen before, a superb multiplayer suite, and it was bolstered by this fiendishly addictive progression system. Now granted, Medal of Honor had already diluted its brand somewhat by this point with a number of releases, but by the time the 2010s gritty reboot flopped critically and commercially, it was painfully clear that the franchise had become irrelevant. The last mainline non-VR Medal of Honor game came all the way back in 2012, while Call of Duty has remained a commercial juggernaut ever since Modern Warfare's release. Number 7, Tekken. So when the Tekken franchise first launched for arcades in 1994, the 3D fighting game scene was pretty healthy, with Namco's Brawler facing some pretty stiff competition from the Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive, or Soul Calibur, or Soul Blade, if you want to go back far enough, series in particular. But in the years that followed, these 3 franchises kind of floundered. I mean, the last proper Virtua Fighter game came out in like 2006. Dead or Alive is just a big booby simulator nowadays, and Soul Calibur 6 is a big booby simulator nowadays anyway. So it does have a pretty stellar character customization mode though. I did love that. My point is that today, none of these series have the same sort of market share and just sort of general perception and public appeal as the Tekken franchise. As for why? Well, Tekken is more accessible, it's got broad skewing gameplay, and also it has an insanely memorable cast of fighters. Yeah, that probably will do it. Now, while you might imagine that the Tekken devs are pretty happy with their utter supremacy and their dominance of the genre, that's not actually quite true. With Tekken 8 director Kohei Akida, I wish that there were other rivals out there to push our limits. Have someone to really make you motivated to push yourself even more. And if that isn't a slap in the face, like a backhanded compliment to themselves and a massive diss to everyone else, it's kind of like all those other fighting games out there, like King of Fighters or Dragon Ball FighterZ, fairly decent fighting games. They're just like, Oh, why don't you just take a big steaming dump over our face as well while you're at it? You've already pulled your trousers down and you're mooning us from right up on high. Yeah, well, we see you. Number 6, World of Warcraft. Now, once upon a time, it seemed absolutely inconceivable that a new MMORPG could come along and dethrone the crown kings of the genre, you know, the likes of Ultima Online and EverQuest. They dominated pretty much the entirety of the 1990s and early 2000s. But in 2004, World of Warcraft came along and just basically said, oh, that's a lot of oxygen in this room, lads. Mind if I just suck it all up? It's mine now. You'll pay me to breathe and be grateful for it. Like an aggressive Henry Hoover. Blizzard's extremely, and I mean extremely, accessible MMO became an overnight pop culture phenom, basically serving as a gateway to allowing new players into this genre. Even the most casual-minded of video game players were like, yeah, I've heard of World of Warcraft, I'll give it a go, because it looks easy. And it is easy. Easy to get lost into for 10 years of your life. Now, in 2010, World of Warcraft peaked with an eye-watering 12 million subscribers, annihilating the all-time peaks of Ultima and EverQuest. They had 250,000 and 550,000 respectively. I mean, they went into massive decline as soon as World of Warcraft launched. And even though many subsequent MMOs have touted themselves as WoW killers, namely Star Wars, the Old Republic and Final Fantasy XIV, the best successful MMO can hope for these days is just kind of like a coexistence. They will never top them because it is just that dominating. And I'm saying that even though I know that the popularity for World of Warcraft has waned somewhat. I mean, it's still rocking 7 million subscribers as recently as this past March, so it's not exactly going anywhere anytime soon, even if it is slowly going down. It basically is the genre. Number 5, Uncharted. Now, though the first Uncharted was a solid, if somewhat flawed, action-adventure romp, Uncharted 2 was the game that really, well and truly, put this franchise on the map, with its peerless brand of eye-popping cinematic action that could well and truly just, well, it was just beyond a game. It was like Hollywood itself, but you were playing it. Uncharted quickly became one of the PlayStation's most stable franchise, with many comparing it favourably to Tomb Raider, despite the early impressions of the game getting it the nickname Dude Raider. But basically what it is it looked at the crown that Tomb Raider was barely holding on to, admittedly by this point in 2000s, because it was kind of waning, and just said, like, I'll have that. And then Lara Croft was like, please don't. And he's just like, look, I'm just going to take it. And what's funny is that it dominated Tomb Raider so much that when it had its own reboot in like 2013, Tomb Raider came out and just said, like, look, okay, fine. You beat me at my own game, I'll try and beat you at your game. I'm going to imitate you. And Drake's just there like, to be fair, pretty good game, but at the same time, no. Too late now, and now you look like the pale imitator, and I look like the originator. Because let's face it, Tomb Raider may have got a pretty decent remake trilogy, but it's never gonna come back to form. Like, it's never gonna hit that peak it did in the 1990s. More to the point, the newer Tomb Raider games pale massively in comparison to Naughty Dog's envelope-pushing achievements. I mean, like, you just look at the sense of scale and scope that Uncharted approaches things with, and then you look at Tomb Raider, and you're like, oh no, it's just not the same vibe anymore, is it? You can be different games, that's fine, but stop trying to chase each other. Long story short, people are definitely going to be more excited about what Nathan Drake is up to rather than Lara Croft. Number 4, Fortnite Battle Royale. Now, the Battle Royale game mode came to prominence in 2017 with the release of the phenomenally popular PUBG Battlegrounds, but later that year, Epic responded with Fortnite Battle Royale, a free-to-play entry into the genre which categorically stole its thunder and everyone else's as well. Now, though it might be alarmist to say that Fortnite outright killed PUBG, given that PUBG still regularly has upwards of 500,000 concurrent players, it did put a massive, irreversible dent in its popularity, given that at its peak in 2018, it often had as many as 3 million concurrent players. That is a lot of change to lose down the back of the sofa. Fortnite being free and having the resources to more swiftly update and basically respond to player feedback allowed a huge surge in popularity. Enough so that PUBG Corp sued Epic in 2018, accusing Fortnite of infringing upon their copyright. And ultimately, they dropped the suit. If I was to try and pick a fight, I wouldn't choose Epic. The amount of lawyers would make it look like that scene in the 300 where they're basically blocking out the sun falling down with just sort of like subpoenas. You're a penis. Now, PUBG's player base quickly declined while Fortnite's just continued to rise, and even today, Fortnite just has concurrent player counts in the millions. It has become the most popular game in the world, and many have forgotten about PUBG pretty much entirely. Given the huge mountain that Epic had to climb to topple such a phenomenally successful and innovative game, it's pretty shocking how quickly they managed to pull all of this off. Shows you the power of money. Number 3, Stardew Valley. Now, farm sim Stardew Valley started its life as a fan-created homage to the Harvest Moon / Story of Seasons franchise, which developer Eric, concerned a Baron, felt had declined significantly since the release of 1999's Harvest Moon Back to Nature. Now, Stardew launched to rave reviews and huge commercial success in 2016, all the while Story of Seasons continued to just kind of go, oh, we're just going to kick rocks, mate. Kick rocks. It's a new feature in our game, kicking rocks. So is sweeping dust. Can I interest you in an expansion pack where you watch paint dry? No? Yeah, I thought so. So while Story of Season was absolutely on a firm downslide, Stardew Valley stepped in and stole its pie, my friend. It improved upon the formula in basically every conceivable way. You want to farm better? Done. You want to move things around? Done. You want to look at things and go and talk to the people and maybe romance them? Done, 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 diddly done, done. Dun, 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 dun. With more than 30 million copies sold as of 2024, Stardew Valley is a genuine pop culture mainstay in its own right that even the most casual non-gamers have heard of. Seriously, my stepmom, she basically is talking to me about that. She's like, you're a gamer. Do you play this? I play Animal Crossing as well. And I'm like, what's going on? We've never spoken about video games before. I've known you for years. What's going on here? But you know, the same cannot be said of Story of Seasons because that has pretty much all but faded into obscurity. And for a game conceived as an homage, and developed by a fan no less, to exceed the achievements of its inspiration is outstandingly impressive. At least the creative mind behind Story of Seasons is a good sport about it, because they came out, I think, fairly recently. My recency, maybe in the last 10 years or so, came out and said, like, you know what, fair play, you did a good job. That must be a huge, like, boost as well to their confidence to know that you're a fan and you got praise from the original director. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Number 2, Overwatch. Now, the hero shooter game quickly became popular in 2016, largely due to the success of Blizzard's Overwatch. And just as World of Warcraft was the MMORPG for many players, Overwatch was the hero shooter for many players. Its genre supremacy was made clear almost immediately after launch, where it soundly trounced competitor Battleborn. Remember that? Do you remember that, Battleborn? But yeah, it dominated it. Overwatch's tight gameplay and memorable roster of characters allowed it to become a cultural behemoth in its own right, inspiring a passionate fan community who, honestly, weren't much interested in what any other genre had to offer. And so, a glut of so-called Overwatch killers came and went, with the likes of Lawbreakers and Gigantic swiftly just dying on the vine. While Overwatch, it continued to maintain a stranglehold over the genre. Hell, Overwatch was popular enough that it arguably even killed its own sequel. Because when Overwatch 2 launched in a, let's just be honest, less than stellar state, fans simply wished they could go back to the halcyon days of the original game. Blizzard, on the other hand, were just kind of like, right, we hear your feedback and we know that we promised you a lot of new features. How about we don't deliver any of them and also make it impossible for you to play Overwatch? How does that sound to you? You liking that? Do you want to pay for some skins too? And number 1, Forza. For well over a decade, Gran Turismo was the unchallenged lion of the racing genre. From its jaw-dropping visuals to its tight simulation gameplay, there was just simply nothing that could compete. But from the mid-2000s onwards, Forza Motorsport slowly began making a name for itself on the Xbox, offering up a similar sim racing experience, albeit with the added hook of the ability to rewind gameplay and correct mistakes, opening the genre up to a more casual brand of player. Forza's popularity accelerated into the 2010s, and once Microsoft launched the more kind of arcadey Forza Horizon sub-series, it truly felt that they now owned the racing genre. And with Gran Turismo releases being considerably more sporadic and other popular races like Burnout and Need for Speed falling by the wayside, Forza laid claim to the genre throughout the 2010s. And you know what? Gran Turismo did not bloody help itself. Do you remember that whole debacle fairly recently? Again, in the last 10 years or so, my recency brain. Do you remember that bit where they were like, oh yeah, you want to buy real like digital cars for your garage, don't you? But you'll pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds for them because they're rare in real life, so therefore you should be paying more for them. I'm sorry, how does that work? How does that work? Wrap your head around that one for me, pal. That's still the same line of code as this other one, this cheap Nissan Micra over here, absolute banger of a car, shout out to the Micras. But why am I paying 500 quid for this one? And you're giving me the Micra for free. Now, just to be clear, it would be very silly of me to call Gran Turismo dead. I mean, Gran Turismo 7 was recently a huge commercial success before all of the issues with the microtransactions and horrible stuff that came out of there. But for Forza to climb out of total obscurity, slowly build a brand, and surpass Gran Turismo in relevancy for many years, that was basically unthinkable back in its heyday. So yeah, take that. Right in the eye. Gran Turismo. Right in the tailpipe. Oh, no, gross. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video games built to kill the competition that won. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below, and pop your suggestions for next week's episode down there as well. Now, before I go, my friends, I just want to say one thing. Even though we spoke today about video game competitors that were designed to take over and they basically beat something into submission, we're going to take that energy of just absolutely taking dominance and control over something and apply it to ourselves. Because you know what, my friend? We're going to take control of negativity and we're going to beat it with positivity. Because you, my friend, yes, you watching this video, deserve love, happiness, and success, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, even if it is yourself. You deserve the bloody best, and you are a massive ledge. And I wish you, from the bottom of my heart, nothing but the best. I want you to go out there and live a healthy and happy life, all right? It's all I want from all of you. That's just it. Just be kind to yourself. Start that process. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon.